footprint, shining wisdom's light, teaching soul tribe how to see through the night. Ancient scriptures and bloodlines she knows, spreading truth wherever she goes.
Hello, everybody. Grand Rising. Good morning. I would have played the entire song, but I've kept you all waiting for a long time. And we're going to do it so that the song will automatically come on at the beginning of every show. So, great rising. Good morning. Wealthy rising. Rich rising. Joyous rising family. Happy 17th. Today is June the 17th, 2025, and the time is 11:10 a.m. Almost 11:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So welcome. I'm so glad to see everybody here. I have been missing for about 7 or 8 days. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but thank you all for being here and happy birthday, Logico. It's your birthday today. You're 18 with 25 years experience. That's hilarious. I see you in the chat as well as Belinda. Awakened One is here. Extreme 699, our Soul Tribe member, is here. Thank you for being a member. I say happy birthday again. And hello, Sister Belinda. Soul Tribe, keep checking in. Star is in the house. Good rising. Cheryl is here from Victoria, California. Truth says hello. Oh, good morning, everybody. Grand rising. It's so good to see everybody. You all are saying I was missed. Oh my gosh, I missed you all too. It was a very interesting 7 days. It was like experiencing a breakup where I was away from you all and not able or allowed to upload, go live. I couldn't put up a post, anything on YouTube for 7 days because they accused me of violating community standards. Now, what happened was I had made an announcement on YouTube letting you all know that I was going to premiere a video with Dr. Tony Vortex from Dr. Delbert Blair's company called the Meta Center Chicago. So I was letting you all know that I was going to upload a video that he and I had done, and we would talk about whether or not aliens were real and how to prepare for 5D ascension as well as New Earth. And along with all that information, we talked about how eating monoatomic gold is something that we've been doing for a long time, and how that gold was actually the manna from on high that the children of Israel had experienced eating while they were in the wilderness, traversing through the wilderness on their way to the promised land. So we went into, in that video, what monoatomic gold was, what colloidals are like, and how these things can help you to ascend, how they raise your vibrational frequencies, and how if you wear gold and silver and take monoatomic gold and silver, that could actually open up your third eye, what some people call your first eye, help you to have clairvoyance or make your clairvoyance skills more sharp, and just amazing things we were talking about in that video. But I just made you all aware that this video was going to be coming on. I think I uploaded like a Sunday or a Monday, and I said we're going to show this show in 2 days, and I got flagged for it. And YouTube said that I was violating community standards for spreading false rumors and for inciting violence, and it was a whole lot of things. And I'm thinking, I'm just talking about ascension. And what's interesting is that Dr. Tony Vortex and I had talked about these things numerous times because he was a consistent person on my show that I interviewed every Wednesday for Wellness Wednesday. However, YouTube didn't want me to upload that video, and that's okay, because that 7 days or 8 days of not being able to speak to you all just gave me an opportunity to read a few books and to focus on myself, to get lots of rest and to rejuvenate, to do some fasting. And like I said, it was like a breakup. If you want to level up or feel better after something happens in your life, like a breakup or you're not allowed to make money, the best thing to do is to focus on yourself. To, yes, pray and meditate, fast, or whatever it takes to focus on yourself and level up internally and externally, work out, exercise, and keep going. So that's what I did. And I said, I'm just going to keep pressing forward, because when it's time, when the time is right, I'm going to come back. So I'm back, and I didn't let you all know what was going on because I couldn't even post it on YouTube to tell you all what was going on. And a few of you did send me email, and I appreciate it. At that time, I wasn't even checking email. I said, I'm just going to focus on myself. I'm going to vacate, and I'm going to go spend some time on the beach, spend time with family, finish these books I'm reading. And I apologize for not getting back to you all. I didn't know that so many of you all had written me and emailed me. Thank you so much for being concerned about me. I appreciate it. I love you, soul family, so very much. Also, thank you all that sent a blessing. Some of you were so concerned. You were like, let me see if you're going through something financial. I don't know what's going on, but you sent me a Cash App blessing, and I want to say thank you. And of course, this isn't, about money. It's about spreading the news so that we can raise the vibrational frequencies of the planet. But quickly, I want to say thank you to my son, Douglas, who sent money, sent a Cash App blessing. I also want to thank Sean Anderson, who says, this is a blessing for you, Dr. Pruitt. Who else? Sheila Wallace said, as always, thank you. Cleopatra sent a blessing, says, thank you for your hard work. Christine Washington sent a Cash App. Angela. Leonard Lassiter Bay, thank you so very much. He and his wife are a lovely couple that consistently bless the show. Pamela as well. Delbert Brown, you are a phenomenal person that always supports the show, as well as Michael George, Estrelita, and many other you have sent the Cash App to $ Mama Kia 13 for the hard work that we do over here. Another way that you can support the show is just by joining our Soul Tribe membership, which I would encourage you to do, because we've talked about some of the things that people are now waking up to. We talked about how Iraq is now fully self-sufficient. We made that announcement before people even knew about the sanctions that President Trump put on Iran to keep Iran from controlling Iraq. A lot of things has happened since President Trump put sanctions on Iraq. For example, Iraq decided that now that they can't depend on Iran for energy and for oil, they started drilling themselves. They have secured agreements with Russia, and they've done some wonderful things in the business sector that I talked about on our Silver Soul Tribe membership. So here is the link. Where is that? The link to that, I'll put it in the chat for you all. If you desire to join the Silver Soul Tribe membership, I encourage you to do that. Here, let me put the link in there. Oh, again, we talked about Iraq being completely self-sufficient. We've talked about Iraq's new transportation system, which made them the transportation hub in the world. We've talked about how Iraq's dinar is now in high demand, and what that's doing to the supply of the Iraqi dinar is shrinking the supply of the Iraqi dinar, and it's causing the value to increase because of this new transit system, a new transportation system. So many things we've talked about that's happening in Iraq, Vietnam, and Zimbabwe, as well as some of the other nations that now are revaluing their currencies because President Trump secure trade agreements in the Middle East and with one of the other largest economies in the world. President Trump securing those trade agreements in the Middle East and with one of the two other largest economies in the world has forced all other nations to revalue their currencies. Okay. So this is not something that's going to make mainstream media news, family, but we did talk about it. And this is the link that you can join in order to be a part of our Soul Tribe membership. The people there, our members, you can put in the chat how helpful being a part of our Soul Tribe membership is to you, how we get the news before everybody else, and how we discuss other currencies that you should invest in. So that's it, family. I just wanted to let you all know. I'm going to talk about what else is going on. I just wanted to let you all know what's been occurring while I was away. That Iraq is ready, Vietnam is ready, Zimbabwe is ready, and some of the other nations that people aren't even talking about are now discussing currency revaluations. For example, there is a country over in Asia that said Trump's talks, trade talks, and tariff talks with our nations will also include foreign currency exchange rate talks. And I showed you the article. A major nation in Asia who had one of the largest economies, who owns most of America's debt, is now saying that we know that President Trump desires to do business with us, but these trade agreement talks will include a currency revaluation of our currency. This is the same nation that a billionaire said you should invest in. We discussed all of that on my Silver Soul Tribe membership or in that group, and I put that link in the description or in a chat. So family, if you are a part of the Silver Soul Tribe membership group, thank you so very much. Please let the family know, without going into detail what we discussed, how beneficial that group is to you. So keep checking in, family. Welcome again. This is the 17th of June, 2025. 2025 is a 9-year. 9 is a very important number. It's the number of completion. It is not like the number 7, which is the number of completion, but 9 is the end of something and the beginning of something new. I'm not the only one that says this. Other numerologists have said this, as well as our beloved Princess Elizabeth, whom I've been speaking to at length, and that should tell you something about where we are. Princess Elizabeth lives in the Philippines. She is from certain royal bloodline families. She is the trigger that will trigger global wealth from the Saint Germain Trust, another trust that's connected to all the gold that's in the Philippines and connected to her bloodline and other trusts. She's been on my show 2 times or more, and she's going to come back to do a question and answer period for us very soon, but we wanted to wait till I could go live again. She and I have been talking at length. I talked to her early this morning, 7:30 my time, a.m. It was 7:30 p.m. her time. We talked last night, and we were on a show together last night answering questions from people all over the world, including people from the Philippines and America, asking us what's going on in the geopolitical world. And let me tell you, that was a phenomenal meeting. And just the fact that she and I are conversing and I am on standby to fly to the Philippines at any time should let you know that we are on the precipice of wonderful things happening, family. So please keep your vibrations high. Please remain encouraged. We will bring her back on to talk about the global wealth and all these trusts and how they will be utilized to free humanity and wipe out all the debt all across the globe, as well as put trillions and trillions of dollars into the global economy. And this is what people are calling NESARA and NESARA, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, and the global version of that, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. So if you're enjoying this so far, my good friend Godfident, who calls me his wife, says, hit the like button, family, one love. So I'll keep checking in. Thank you for being a new member, Regal 17. I appreciate you. You will be blessed for joining the membership group. So keep checking in. I'm glad you all can hear me. Grand Rising. Oh, gosh. You need to get a message to me? Okay, you can send it to kiapruitt@gmail.com. If you are a member, I would have given you a different email, because members have a different email for members only, because if we get everybody that email, it would be too much for me. But kiapruitt@gmail.com. So let's get into the news. Why was I missing? Because I was trying to upload information about this particular video here that Dr. Tony Vortex and I had done from the Meta Center, Chicago, talking about 5D Ascension and how to prepare. You can watch it on my Rumble channel, though. This is he and I discussing aliens being real, or extraterrestrials, beings that live on the land outside of the landmass that we know about, that leads me to another. I'm reading another book about somebody who was born behind the ice walls, and she's giving her account. But he and I talked about extraterrestrials or so-called aliens and how we know that they're real. We talked about how to prepare for the planet ascending and how you can ascend in consciousness and raise your vibrational frequencies. We talked about how to know that new earth is real and how it's not necessarily that you're going to be caught up to go into heaven, but how the earth is actually changing and transitioning, and how, heaven and earth are actually residing within you, and it's a part of the reality that you create every day. But we talk about what this glorious new earth is going to be about, how you can eat gold and more. So if you get a chance, check that video out on Rumble. YouTube said that it was not something that I can talk about on YouTube, so they didn't allow me to upload for an entire week. And I didn't really want to talk about that too much, about, YouTube censoring me, because I wanted to keep the vibrations high. I don't want to complain. I just want to say I'm grateful to be back, and I'm happy to be here with you all. So what's going on in the news, family? Several things. Number one, President Trump has secured major trade agreements with Asian nations and with nations in the Middle East. As a matter of fact, he said all countries have reached out to him to make agreements. Every last country has made trade agreements with President Trump. However, his agreement with one of the largest economies that's next to America has inspired other nations to get on board and make trade agreements. Because what had happened under President Biden and some of the other presidents was that countries would import goods into America with little or no tariffs, little or no taxes. But when we would import our goods into their countries, they would tax us out of the wazoo. Now, that was unfair, because when you do business, you want to make sure everybody's on a level playing field. So President Trump said, before you had this happening where you were taxing and importing our goods, and before we were limiting the taxes we put on your goods, before that, we would all tax each other one-to-one. You tax me for importing goods, I tax you. But what other administrations had done is decided to stop taxing other nations and start taxing the American people through the Internal Revenue Services. That's why they created the Internal Revenue Services, to tax us. This is why President Trump says, I am going to end the Internal Revenue Service and create the External Revenue Service so that we can tax other nations and stop taxing the people. Well, now President Trump has made that something that is precedent. He has set a precedent. No more taxing the people. So the IRS did not hire those 87,000 people that they were supposed to hire under the Biden administration. President Trump put a halt to that and said, we're not going to hire those 87,000 new IRS agents who are tasked with taxing the people and given the charge to shoot Americans on sight if they did not pay their taxes. President Trump did away with that, and he created the External Revenue Services, put taxes on other nations, and made trade deals, which now encourage these nations to revalue their currencies. In order to do business with America, you have to have the money to do so. You have to revalue your currency. So this is the talks that's going on behind the scenes that nobody's talking about. But we do know that President Trump has secured trillions of dollars in trade deals in the Middle East and in the Asian nations. That's one thing that has happened. Trade deals that will put all countries one-on-one with each other. Another thing that has happened is President Trump has downsized the government by downsizing governmental agencies like the FBI, the CIA, the IRS, et cetera, et cetera. And he was able to do that because the Supreme Court ruled that now these agencies that were considered government agencies have to stand down because they are treasonous and unconstitutional. That precedented or unprecedented case, well, now it's a precedented case, is called the Chevron Doctrine. When President Trump created the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, what he was doing was creating an agency that would eliminate the government or eliminate all of these agencies, including the United States Incorporated, because they are unconstitutional, nefarious, and they took away our freedoms. Him doing this is another way of restoring the republic, our lawful government. So he secured trade deals, he put taxes on other countries, which forced them to revalue their currencies. He's downsizing the government. And thirdly, he is deporting illegal people from our country. This has caused a serious problem amongst people who don't understand and understand what's happening. So over the weekend, during President Trump's birthday, what we saw was a No Kings rally or protest that occurred all over America. It started in Los Angeles, where they claimed these were Mexican family members or Mexican people who had crossed the border either legally or illegally, rallying, saying it's not fair that President Trump is saying that he's going to deport us, and we want him impeached. So they were waving the Mexican flag and allegedly burning the American flags, as well as throwing cocktails and homemade bombs at the police. It got out of hand to the extent that the police departments in Los Angeles were saying, we can't control this, we need help. This is out of our control. They're bombing police cars, they're rallying in the street, they're causing chaos, they're breaking and entering into stores and causing a lot of mayhem. Well, the mayor was out, said, I can't do anything in Los Angeles. The police department needed help. So President Trump sent the National Guard and the Marines there to bring about peace. Then you saw these rallies and protests spread all across the nation, where they had, massive protests and violence and throwing things at the police officers. Family, what I would suggest is that everybody stay encouraged and keep your vibrations high, because I don't believe that this is just random Mexican brothers and sisters that are protesting. Some of them are, but a lot of them have been infiltrated with paid provocateurs that are still being funded by billionaires that want to incite violence and chaos before we bring about planetary peace and inject this massive wealth. So you have not only so-called Mexicans that are rallying, but people from all across the globe that have come across the border and secured themselves as illegal, what they call illegal aliens. So some of these are migrants and some of these are immigrants. Migrants, like meaning they're coming from Cuba or Mexico or some of the surrounding islands, and immigrants coming from all over the world. What they would do is they would come from their nations and then cross into the Mexican border and masquerade as Mexicans and then come into the United States through many, many means. Under the Biden administration, 15 million undocumented people came through our borders. 15 million people, that's unheard of, came through the borders. Now, some of those 15 million people were from Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti or Haiti, and there was one other nation, I can't remember. I don't know if it was Colombia, but those people came through what's called a humanitarian visa, which allowed them to be in America for 2 years for whatever reason. And that happened under the Biden administration. So 15 million people came under the Biden administration, but those that came through humanitarian visa, there were 532,000 that came here, and they were given 2 years to be here. They were given that visa and they were sponsored to do so. And while they were here, they were also allowed to get a work permit, but the work permit only lasts for 2 years. Consider that most of the people came in 2022 and 2023. This is 2025. That means their time is up. That's what people aren't talking about. The 2 years is up. So what President Trump is saying is we have to do a massive deportation because we have 15 million people that are here illegally, unlawfully, undocumented, that have crossed the border, many of them being young men of military age, which means it's an invasion. And then aside from the military age men that were here, you had women and children that were here. Why? Because many of them have been trafficked while they were here. That's what a lot of people don't know. And yes, I do know, because many of them that are in the communities that surround areas that I live in, Jacksonville, are sex workers, the women. Sex workers being either forced to do so or doing so because they want to make money while they're here within that 2-year period. I know what I'm talking about. I've spoken to some of them. So President Trump said we have 15 million people crossing the border, and along within that 15 million, 532,000 were allowed to be here for 2 years through a humanitarian visa, and they were given work permits. But some of those documents were not filled out according to lawyers who are now speaking up. Immigration lawyers are now speaking up. Some of the documents were not necessarily documents that were legal, and they weren't vetted. People could lie about their name, they could lie about their age. Nobody was checking them. And you will hear some of the workers who had to lay off or fire some of these undocumented people because they're going to be deported anyway. They're speaking up and saying, well, I e-verified them. Yeah, you might have e-verified them, but a lot of workers that e-verified them knew that the e-verification was just a simple document with somebody's name, somebody's age, and without proof that this is the person that they're allowing to work for them. The e-verification process had a lot of holes in it, according to immigration lawyers. So let me take a step back. 15 million people were allowed inside our borders undocumented, unvetted. Many of them were military age men, and then women and children. And this is why President Trump secured the borders. And that's why he put up a wall. So the wall and of the new policies are actually making those women and children safe because they were trafficked. Also, we had fentanyl and billions and billions of dollars worth of drugs that was coming through these borders and put into the neighborhoods and communities of the American people, which now put us on drugs. So we had drugs crossing the border. We had military age men that were given cell phones, a right to vote, and guns crossing the border. And you had vulnerable women and children crossing the border that were being trafficked. Now we understand and understand that people need opportunities, and that's why many people leave their country. And I think that's understandable and it's understandable. But there is no country on this planet that you can go to that will allow you to cross their border illegally and remain there over your lifetime and be given benefits and allowed to vote and allowed to do whatever you want to do and create and commit crimes in their nation. There's nowhere on the planet that I am aware of. I've traveled, my sons have traveled abroad. We've been to Africa, we've been to Central America, South America, all over the planet. Some of my family members have been to Asia. There's nowhere you can go that will allow you to bring drugs there and commit crime there and remain. So what President Trump is saying, we have to secure our borders to make Americans safe and to make these women and children safe. Because they may be thinking they're coming over here for opportunities, but then once they get here, they're trafficked. They're forced to do labor that they don't want to do. They're forced to become sex workers. The children are forced into pornography. They're forced to be strippers and do other things for favors because they have to eat and send money back to their countries. That's another thing we're not talking about. The trillions and trillions of dollars that's going into Mexico and to the other nations from the people that are here earning money, some of them lawfully, some of them unlawfully, sending their money back home. And we understand that you want to take care of your family, but that those trillions of dollars are bringing up the GDP of those nations while Americans are suffering because they're taxing our imported goods. And the deep state is taxing Americans through the Internal Revenue Services. We're being cut out of jobs because now you can hire undocumented students or undocumented people to work for minimum wage. And that's unfair. and it has to stop. So a lot of people don't know that President Obama and other presidents actually did deport people. Now, they didn't do it en masse like President Trump is doing, but they deported people. There is no president that has allowed what Biden has allowed in history. 15 million people coming into our country. If you can't see that's an invasion, I don't know what to tell you. What had they intended to do, allowing this many people into our nation? So yes, President Trump has launched a mass deportation campaign. But what he said is you need to self-deport. He created an app so that people can self-deport, but he's saying we'll pay for it. We'll pay for you to be deported back. You can pay for it yourself, or we'll pay for it if you can't afford it, back to your country. And he's giving people $1,000. Some of them have left with $1,000. I've seen the interviews. Now, $1,000 is not going to feed them for a long time, but he also said you'll have the opportunity to come back lawfully. Did you see that? You can self-deport, but if you don't, we're going to come for you because many of you are here illegally. You came illegally. Your documents were not vetted, and you knew what you were doing. And the government, American government, was in cahoots with you, but we understand that you had to seek a better opportunity for yourself. But we're going to allow you to self-deport, or we'll deport you with aid, and we'll give you $1,000 and give you the opportunity to come back. Mainstream media won't tell us this. Mainstream media wants to support the narrative that President Trump is racist. But please tell me what other nation will allow this. There is no other nation. And let me tell you what some people do, because a lot of people, even a lot of our family members here that are lawful, became legal once they got here. A lot of people came here illegally, and they're saying, well, yeah, I'm legal, but ask them, did you come here illegally? A lot of people were coming through our borders illegally, but what they did was they saw amnesty. So a lot of people that came here through the Biden administration, those 15 million people, were thinking they could seek amnesty that would forgive them for coming illegally, and then they could remain. President Trump said there will be no amnesty given. There will be no amnesty. There will be no forgiveness if you came here illegally. Now, I do understand and understand it's very hard to come here illegally. Like, you have to have money in the bank. You have to have a business or something going on in your own country so that the American government can know that you have intentions to go back to your home country. It's the same in every country. At least it's been the same where I've traveled. You have to have a legitimate reason for being in their country, and they have to know that you have plans to return back. But a lot of people did not have plans to return back, and they didn't return back. There are people that are crying and complaining that they have to self-deport or being deported, and they're saying it's unfair because they've been here 20 years or, or more, 10 to 20 years. And you're like, I have to leave my house. I got a degree while I was here. I got a mortgage, I own property, I own businesses. And now just because I'm undocumented, I got to go back home. And I'm thinking, how were you able to secure a mortgage, to get student loans and financing, to get college degrees without being a United States citizen? Oh, but we pay taxes, they said, and we were voting. So we shouldn't have to go back home. But the issue is that the American government allowed you to get all these benefits that were supposed to be for Americans, just like in your country. The benefits that the people from other countries receive are not the benefits that are given to visitors or tourists. So President Trump is saying, we're going to put some more restrictions on people. We're going to make it harder to get a green card too, because even those people, a lot of people, not everybody, who were getting green cards did not have to go to their interviews. There are many people here that stage marriages, and some of them are unstaged, but they really loved each other, but they didn't have to go through an interview process because Biden didn't enforce it. You didn't have to go through an interview process. President Trump said, no more. You're going to have to go through an interview process so that we can look over all your documents, Make sure you're here legally. Make sure your marriage is legal. Make sure you have good intentions while you're here. And make sure you're not trafficking drugs or women and children. So under the Biden administration, people didn't have to go to those interviews. They could fake marriages. They could fake documents. They could vote. They could get college degrees. They could be funded. They could get mortgages. I know this because I worked in student affairs at colleges. We had an undocumented students office for undocumented students to receive scholarships, housing, food, academic enrichment programs, and a mortgage. All you had to do was present your transcript to say that you were in college. You could be illegal and undocumented, but you could present a transcript to a mortgage loan officer and get a mortgage without even graduating from college. And I'm not talking about a small mortgage. I'm talking about a mortgage to pay for nice, big, beautiful homes for your family, which, hey, if it's the same for everybody, okay, but only undocumented students had that privilege. And we had undocumented student offices at many student affairs departments on many different college campuses. President Trump said no more undocumented students, no more being married without having to go through some type of interview. And the process to get a green card will now take longer because before it was less than a year to get a green card, between 6 months and a year. He said it's going to take at least 18 to 20 months now. And he's not trying to be rude or mean or nasty, but he has to take things to a place where we know that people are here for benevolent reasons and for the reasons that they say they're here. And we have to ensure that there are enough resources to go around for everybody. Americans first, just like other nations take care of their people first. It only makes sense to me. You guys let me know what you think about this in the comments section. You must be a judgmental racist, and I will not pray or beg you to go away. I don't know who you're talking about, but there are commercials. How are there commercials when this is live? I don't know. I'm just going to ignore that comment because we have so many people here in the Soul Tribe that know that we love everybody. But you can't be here in our country unlawfully and illegally. It's a crime. It's a crime. It's one of our laws that you have to go through verification and you have to prove that you're not here to commit crimes. That's a law. People might not like it, but if you break a law, you are a criminal. Like, what part of that is hard for people to understand and overstand? I'm probably missing something. So again, through the Biden administration, we had 15 million people here. But some of those people that came from Haiti, Cuba, and Venezuela, those that were here through a humanitarian visa because they said, they had extenuating circumstances at home and they needed to come here. They were allowed to be here for only 2 years, and they were also given a work visa, a work permit. Those work permits and work visas were not vetted, according to many attorneys that are speaking up now. And our time is up. So those people that were here on humanitarian visas were given 2 years. They came in between 2022 and 2023. Again, I said, this is 2025. So the time is up. Like, what part of that, why people are like saying, I can't go back home is understandable, because maybe the circumstances back home are so bad that they want to remain. But you knew when you came here that you were only supposed to be here for 2 years. Or you knew when you came here, some of the people that were doing nefarious things and had brought in drugs and that were brought in children to be trafficked, you knew it was illegal and unlawful. So why are you trying to pull on the heartstrings of the American people, saying, stop President Trump from deporting us? I have a heart. Yes, I dated a Cuban, so I'm Colombian. My great grandfather was a Colombian. So I get it. I know, I understand and understand. However, the law is the law. The good news is that it's important for every person to be back in their country in order to receive the National Economic Security and Reformation Act benefits. NESARA and GESARA. The global version of that is the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. These acts are economic reforms that were talked about decades ago and are now being implemented through President Donald Trump in order to usher in trillions and trillions of dollars that will bless global economies all across the globe. This is what nations are preparing for that mainstream media will not tell you. In order to receive those benefits, in order to have all your debt, your credit card debt, your mortgage debt, any bank loans completely eliminated or forgiven, and in order to have a universal basic income through NESARA and GESARA benefits, you have to be in your home country. So mass deportation could be a blessing in disguise when you know that. So you cannot have national security without having national border or border security, family. Other presidents had some border security, but Biden honestly did not have any border security. In fact, he unsecured the borders. Trump's border success, though, is unprecedented. We now have the most secure borders that we've ever had in history. Illegal immigration is now down 96% due to the wall being up and border security. Fewer women and children are now being sex trafficked. Fentanyl is not coming across our borders anymore. Gangsters are no longer crossing our borders anymore. And people are no longer being terrorized. You know, the MS-13 gang members were crossing the border into Mexico and then coming into America, raping women and children, committing violence in many communities, selling drugs. But all that has been put to a screeching halt now that President Trump has secured the border and he's arresting criminals. He's arresting MS-13 gang members. He is arresting some people who have stayed here illegally, but he's given the call out to self-deport. And he said, we'll help you. We'll financially help you. And he's giving them $1,000 to do so. Not the gang members, but the people who need it. Now, the George Soros funded Antifa-like groups, Black Lives Matter groups, and all those other groups that will protest and commit violence and terrorize cities will not tell you that President Trump is trying to protect our nation. They'll tell you he's separating family members. And I can understand that. That would be hard for me to be here and be separated from my children or from my husband. However, I would have to take some accountability for coming here illegally. I would have to take some accountability for overstaying my visa. I would have to take accountability for thinking I could come here and seek amnesty like other people. I would have to take some accountability for putting my children in that type of situation. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm saying everybody has to take accountability for their part. But what people like to do is play the victim and victimize themselves and say, I'm a victim, but not admit that I was complicit in this crime. And maybe I had to do so because I felt like I needed to feed my family, but you still have to take accountability for what you have done and your part in crossing the border illegally. And I know it's hard to come here lawfully. I get it. But the good news again is that NESARA and GESARA will be implemented. And behind the scenes, 209 nations through Project Sandman agreed to world peace. And they agreed that when things are put in place, these economic reforms and these laws are put in place, then we can lighten up or lax some of the tight borders, but you still have to cross lawfully and legally. Now, as an aside, most people won't even want to come into America once their nations are thriving. This is why also behind the scenes through Project Sandman, 209 nations agreed to stop trading with the United States dollar. They're separating themselves from the United States government and from the central banking system, which is part of the United States government, the Federal Reserve Central Banking System. How are they separating themselves? They said no longer are we trading with the United States dollar, but we're trading with our own local currencies backed by gold and other precious metals. This is a sovereign statement to say I'm no longer using the United States dollar. I'm using my own local currency backed by precious metals. By doing so, family, these countries are securing not only their sovereignty, but their wealth, because they repatriated their gold back from the Vatican. They've made trade agreements with other nations, and they're mining the gold and resources in their countries. And they're free to do that now that these 209 nations have agreed to world peace. And since they have agreed to stop trading with the dollar and to use their own currencies. To use their own currencies for trade means that they have to revalue their currencies in order to trade with other nations. So revaluing their currencies, repatriating their gold back to themselves, making trade agreements means there's money now in their nations and they're free to mine. Which, by the way, a lot of mining companies here in America and across the globe were shut down once we came off the gold standard, but they're now reopening. For those of you that are thinking about ways to invest in your money, mines are reopening now. Thank you so much for the Cash App blessing, Sister Norma Salazar. I appreciate you and I love you so much, and for the rest of you. So you have 209 nations that agree behind the scenes to stop trading with the dollar. They agreed to use their own currencies, and they agreed to world peace. Then you have trusts that were created through presidents in the Philippines that I won't mention, and presidents all over the world and different bloodline families all over the world that have stored up money and wealth to help liberate the planet. They put these monies in trust. There would be certain triggers. Princess Elizabeth in the Philippines, we have other matriarchal women or matriarchs that are what Chief Hayes calls them are the 7 daughters of Isis. These are matriarchs or women that are the sole executors of several trusts that people don't know about all across the planet that will, at the time of the trigger, when they're giving the announcement that it's okay to do so, they will release those funds. We happen to know Princess Elizabeth from the Philippines. She'll be back on to answer any of your questions. And there are some all across the globe that we will be meeting in a very near future. So once those funds, those trust funds are released, family, again, all that wealth would flood into all these nations, and then people will make a determination whether or not they want to cross the border. Many of them will decide to stay home. So what's happening right now is President Trump has expanded deportation into Democratic-run cities, because Democratic-run cities allow a lot of illegal immigrants to come and illegal migrants to come into the country, allowed them to vote, gave them many benefits, Section 8 money. We've talked about all the money and all these benefits, and allowed a lot of the crime to get out of hand from the drug trafficking and the sex trafficking that was occurring. So he has expanded deportation in these Democratic cities, which has caused a lot of people to, again, in response to rally and protest and what they're calling No Kings protests. Somebody do the gematria No Kings, because that would be interesting. Now, I would tell you, and I have told you before, that 41, according to numerologists that I study with, 41 represents kings, 14 represents white supremacy. You would see 14 and 41 in a lot of their things, that they were a lot of news, a lot of rioting that was going on. You see the two numbers, and he would tell me they're saying that this is the end of white supremacy, not meaning that Caucasian people were ruling, but white supremacy is an ideology of the elite, or among the elite, that the elite people with white status, not white skin, white status, could continue to implement ideologies to divide the country and divide the world, so they could keep fighting while they, the elite class, control them. White is a status. Black is a status. White is the status of the elite. They own the wealth. They own 1%, only 99% of the wealth. They made you think it was about complexion. It was not. Black means you have no legal standing, no standing in law. Trust me, they looked at all humans as having black status. You just didn't know it because you thought black and white was about skin complexion. we'll save that for another discussion. So 41, when you see 41 was being pushed a lot lately over the last few months, because they were actually saying that the kingdom or the kings were coming back online. These people who have been oppressed and suppressed throughout many generations are now coming back to reclaim their wealth, to reclaim their land. But the deep state is saying no kings. They make you think it's about Donald Trump is not a king. We're not going to have a king. But what they're saying is no sovereignty, no rule, no freedom, no wealth. Okay. No kings. We're not going to be able to operate in our sovereignty. Reign means rule and control. That's what kings do. Sov is over your own life. They're saying nobody's going to have rule, reign, control of their own life. But what your brain sees, your subconscious sees king. So I don't care if they're saying no kings. The subconscious sees king. They know that we're coming back to reclaim our inheritance. We, the people, are coming back to reclaim our sovereignty, freedom, prosperity, and wealth. What a lot of people didn't know is not only were lawmakers allowing people to come here, but judges were protecting criminals. As a matter of fact, there was a case where one of the lawyers was telling us that this person had shot a woman and her son. And the person who was an illegal immigrant had to go to court. While they were in court, the feds or the Homeland Security was alerted that this gentleman who had committed the crime was in court for that day. Well, the judge knew that these deportation people were there and that the feds were there to take him away because they knew that he was going to get off on his crime. So what she did, the judge snuck him while they were in court now, told him to come to the desk, snuck him into her office, sent him out of the courthouse so that he can be safe. He was about to be prosecuted for committing a crime against a woman and a child. This is a lawyer telling the story. And it's on mainstream media. I'm not mainstream, but it's on the internet. He's telling the story, okay? But what she didn't know is that there was a plainclothes officer that was sitting by watching this, so they arrested her on the spot. So you have judges and attorneys that were complicit in allowing immigrants that were here illegally, that were trafficking drugs, harming Americans. They were complicit in making sure that they were not prosecuted because they were being paid. This is why President Trump, another reason why he's going after many of these attorneys and judges, because they don't work for we the people. They work for the British Crown. Many of them have been compromised on top of that, and they work for the deep state. President Trump is putting a stop to that. Also, a lot of DMV workers were allowing people that couldn't even drive, weren't even drivers in their own country, to get driver's license. They didn't have to pass a test, a written test. They didn't have to pass a driver test. They were just given driver's license, fake license to immigrants. Commercial licenses, which is why you see a lot of trucks on the highway overturned, because they were allowed to truck and they were allowed to work, given commercial licenses when they couldn't work, and harming American people and their own family members on the road. But DMV workers are being arrested now. And I have all this that I'm saying. I have all the links to everything that I'm saying. I'll put it in the description section for you after I end this video. And again, President Trump is saying we have to put a stop to this. As it concerns the green cards, he said there'll be no more interview waivers for marriage green cards. There'll be fraud screening. It'll be intensified now. Public charge financial scrutiny will be reinstated. Well, we're going to scrutinize all your financials to make sure you have money to go back home. You have money at home. They're going to go over your financial documents to make sure you're paying taxes, whatever you're supposed to be doing. All your financial documents will be scrutinized. And he also says increased green card denials for missing documents or weak documents. So if you don't have the documents that you're supposed to have, if it's weak, if they're missing, we're going to deny you a green card, which has not happened under the Biden administration. So I don't want to be on here long. I have another meeting to go to right now. So somebody says, welcome back. Thank you. Thank you so much. And welcome. This is the age of the matriarch. So President Trump is securing the border to make Americans safe, to make women and children safe, and to make sure that they go back home and become more creative about how they can effectuate change in their home. Did you know that some people cross the border illegally risk their lives? Others, like in African nations, would pay what's called sell their property, their land, in order to pay for a lottery ticket, hoping that they get chosen by whoever's in charge in their different countries to come here. Sell everything they have. But what if now your country is able to mine, your country is now secure, your country is now sovereign, your country is now using its own currency that's been revalued? And what if all your entrepreneurs are called back home to create businesses in your own country? And now you have the money and you have the motivation to effectuate change in your own country. Wouldn't that be beautiful? You don't have to separate from mom and dad, from husband, from wife, from children. So all I'm saying is it seems on the surface to be like really, really harsh that President Trump is implementing this mass deportation, but you had criminals coming here that were raping women and children. You have MS-13 gang members. You have drugs being smuggled into our country that's killing out or annihilating or unaliving women, men, and children from all different walks in life, from all different ethnicities, from all different socioeconomic stratas or socioeconomic classes. We have to secure the borders to make sure everybody is safe and to set the stage for global wealth and trillions of dollars being injected into the global economy. That will happen. I don't think Black Americans will regret supporting deportation because, first of all, nobody's Black. We all have legal standing. And if you're talking about people that look like me, we are the autogenous people. We are the Americans. Look up the 1828 Webster's definition for American. It's the copper-colored people that were found here by Christopher Columbus and the other Europeans. But now American is applied to Europeans. But the original American is the so-called African American who was actually a prisoner of war. So the land was stolen here. They were reclassified from being called autogenous, which means you sprung from the land. The same DNA material that's in the dirt is the same DNA material that's in your colon because you literally sprung from the earth. Now, if you believe the Bible story says you were framed from the earth, if you really believe the Sumerian text, you know that Anunnaki and other beings came here, took the clay and their genetic codes and created modern day human beings. So the so-called Black people or dark complected people all across the planet are the autogenous or original people on the planet. And then from them sprang other nations. So why would we be mad about mass deportation? Like, America is our home. It's the home of our ancestors. No, we want everybody to be treated fairly. We want everybody to be treated with love, because before we actually welcome Europeans, I've done many videos on that. Europeans came here, as long as you come here lawfully, nobody cared. The 13 colonies were allowed to do their own thing. That's why they have the American flag is actually their flag, their banner of trade and commerce, their banner to operate in commerce. They had their own laws, their own statutes, their own codes, their own government. Nobody bothered them. In fact, the autogenous American people, so-called Blacks, had peace treaties with them. Some of you know about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, but there were many peace treaties. So that's not the problem, people coming here. In fact, Trump and Obama said Morocco was the first nation to recognize us as our own nation. Morocco, Morocco, the empire which was stationed here in America, and the autogenous people here welcome Europeans and other people here. Obama and Trump said that Morocco was the first to acknowledge us as our own nation, because when Europeans came here, they had their own nation, right? But then you had nefarious beings that came along and caused division between them. You got to follow Rod Hayes and look at my podcast with him to see what happened. So as these nefarious beings caused division between them, they reclassified us. They took over our republic. They allow certain people to be over every area of society, economics, religion, politics, yada, yada, entertainment. And while they may have put a light complected or a Caucasian face in those positions, and then later people from the CCP, China Communist Party, there were some people that were actually dark melanated beings behind the scenes controlling them. In the meantime, they reclassified our classification from being autogenous indigenous people to being from that to colored, then to black, then to Negro, then black to black, and then finally to African American in order to confuse us. And this was done through Walter Plecker and others who were a part of what is Walter Plecker over? Census Bureau. Look up Walter Plecker and how the categorization of Black folks was changed. Then they lied about a slavery narrative saying we came from African slave ships, which has been debunked. All to confuse us and to confuse everybody all in America and to keep all this infighting, make our European brothers and sisters think, oh, because you have white status, that means your great-grandparents enslaved so-called Black people, and tell so-called Black people you're Black, you're a slave, you'll never amount to anything. And all that's a lie. That's why President Trump has gotten rid of DEI programs, affirmative action, and because he's totally dismantling all of that. So no, I don't think people that look like me is going to be upset about mass deportation, because what will happen now is that everybody will be in their own country receiving beautiful, beautiful benefits through the tenets of NESARA, UBI benefits, universal basic income, and all the benefits I described in my NESARA video. You have to watch that. I can't go into it. I'm running late for another show, another appointment. So, and they will be able to come over here once the rules have been lifted and things are done in place. They'll be able to come over here and do business. Now, a lot of people that were coming over here to do business came over to do business, getting money from our government and getting loans with no interest or very little interest. So now President Trump is saying we're going to tighten the green card, we're going to tighten the border, and we are going to now create what's called a gold card. It's going to cost you $1 million if you want a gold card to come here and do business. I'm not mad at it, because when I lived in Ghana, they said the same thing. You're an American, you want to do business here? We don't care about your skin complexion. Give me $1 million. It's the same law all across the planet. We're just so used to having lax laws and allowing everybody to come here, run roughshod, do whatever they want, sex anybody they want to do, not get married unlawfully, bring drugs, do drugs, use drugs, funnel drugs, traffic drugs, kill women, kill children, have pornographies. You're so used to lawlessness and indulging in lascivious behavior and activity, doing as many drugs as you want, sexing as many people, watching pornography, cheating on your wife, cheating on your husband, getting out of doing things. You're so used to lawlessness that you like it, that you support it. And then you call yourself a victim and you want somebody that from Black Lives Matter and Antifa to fight for you, to be lawless, to not be married, to cheat on your spouse, to watch pornography, even though some of you know that those women and children that participate in pornography have been trafficked. You don't care, some of you. But you want somebody to come and save you from your lawless behavior. But we are implementing law and order. In my family and in my life, we operate on law and integrity. We have a high moral compass. And that's what President Trump is doing. And that's why he's implementing law and order. No more protests. No more yelling, screaming, hollering at the, border patrol, police officers throwing bombs at them in the name of Black Lives Matter. And you want me, because my skin is brown, to support that foolishness, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and all these protesters, to throw bombs at police? You want me to teach my children to disrespect authority because I'm going to be so lawless that I'm going to support that behavior? The devil is a liar and a deceiver too. God is not through blessing you. That's the song. The devil's a lie. Thank you all for supporting me. My Cash App, $ Mama Kia 13. Thank you all also for joining me. I put that in the chat and I also put in the description section. Thank you all for listening to me rant. President Trump is implementing law and order in order to protect our borders, in order to protect the American people, and in order to protect those who came here seeking refuge and seeking a better life, because many of them have been trafficked. We're getting rid of pornography. We're closing the strip joints. We're saving the children, we're saving the women, and we're going to allow women to have wealth too, so they don't have to sell their bodies and give out their vajayjay to anybody under the guise of modeling. But a lot of you just want to keep up the foolishness. But over here, we want law and order. Not only do we desire it, we demand it and command it, and we're making sure that it happens by operating at the local level. Local communities have more power than the federal government. That's part of the 10th Amendment. So operate on the local level in order to get in order to create laws. There are going to be no more policies in place. Operate at the lawful level, at the local level. And if your mayor or your governor is not doing his or her job, sue them. Do like the people in Kentucky did. Kentucky became the 45th state to remove the state sales taxes from the sales of precious metals. Governor Andy Beshear said, I don't care, we're still going to put taxes on precious metals. So 3 taxpayers got along with one of the largest precious metals companies and sued Governor Andy Beshear. Use your power instead of complaining, instead of expecting somebody to rally and protest with you and cry and roll around like a baby, like you're rolling around on somebody's mattress. We don't do that over here. We use our sovereign authority to command things to be done. And we get off our tushies and we do it. So what is a lawful protest? Look at the etymology of the word. Look at Black's Law Dictionary. A lawful protest is writing a doc, stating your grievance, having it notarized, and then going through proper channels to make sure that it's done, that your grievances are heard. It's not standing in the street marching. You need to learn laws. Because protest doesn't really bring about anything anyway. We see that happening right now, except for awareness where we already knew that things were happening. Let's get things done. Let's find solutions and implement them like President Donald Trump. He's securing the border. He's making sure everybody's protected. Now, it might seem like it's a little aggressive because aggressively our laws were laxed. Our borders were laxed and 15 million people were here undocumented and illegally. That is called an invasion. And we will not tolerate it. A lot of people also don't respect male energy and male authority because they're so used to running roughshod. They don't understand that when men speak, they mean what they say and they say what they mean. And that's why a lot of us women are single, because we don't like male authority. We don't want structure. We don't want rules. But guess what? Now that the DEI programs have been taken away, 30,000 or more women classified as Black has lost their jobs because they got jobs through DEI programs. Now, guess what? Some women are going to have to learn how to be married. Imagine that. We're going to have to learn how to accept male authority, because while we're emotional and we are wise, we are smart. Don't get that twisted. But we also operate on our emotions at times. Men bring about structure, rules, and order and discipline. Yes, we know that there is a such thing as classified as toxic masculinity, but what is that really? Let's talk about the masculine principle: order, structure. And if we operate in our feminine principle, being lovely, being kind, being pleasant, being feminine, you also have a masculine side too. But when we learn how to operate in our masculine energy and get along with the male principle, that's when we'll have stability and balance in our homes, in our families, in our communities, in the society, and all across the globe. A lot of people are not used to a man saying, this is the law, this is the rule, you're going to follow it, and if you don't, we're going to enforce the law. Now we have President Trump to do that. Welcome to the golden new reality. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I trust that I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve, because you are sovereign beings and ye are gods. You have the ability to create the life that you deserve. and so do our family members that are being deported. They will have an opportunity to create the life that they deserve, because now they're positioned to receive the benefits that they will receive through NESARA and NESARA. Thank you so much for listening, family. I have to go. I'm sorry that I have to go, because I really would like to take some questions, but we'll come back and we'll answer your questions as soon as we can. Also, those of you that contributed to my Cash App, thank you. And those of you who joined while we were speaking, thank you. Here is that link, and I really need to go. I have people waiting for me. I'm going to put the link in the chat for you, and I'll also put it in the description section for you as well. And I will put all of the links to the things that we've talked about today in the description section of the video. That's it, family. Bye for now. I love you so much. Go out and make this an amazing day. Thank you, Sister Christy. Thank you, family. I appreciate you being here. We have 1,000 people in the chat. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, send the video, and join the membership only tribe. We're going to talk about more Iraq news later on in the day or tomorrow. And we're going to talk about a secret trust that a lot of people don't know about. The Chevron doctrine actually unleashed or unlocked the secret trust and allowed it to be implemented. We'll talk about that later. Peace, family. Go make this a great day. You're welcome. God bless you. Creator bless you and bless yourself. Bye-bye.